What's up, superheroes? Welcome to another episode of 21 Day Hero Show. 21 Day what, you say? Exactly, you heard it right. From now on, our podcast will be named 21 Day Hero Show instead of Hustle Duo Show. And of course, along with the website and social media and basically all the brand, from now on it changes to 21 Day Hero. And you might be wondering why. Well, the initial idea of the Hustle Duo was that me and my wife Davila, we would go on these challenges, try different routines and habits, and we would basically do that, document it, and put it on YouTube and other channels. But we kind of grown away from that initial idea, and we needed a brand that represents the core of our activities much better and put you guys at the center of attention, our community. So we thought 21 Day Hero will represent us much better. It will give a hint that our core activity is actually doing these 21-day challenges for body and mind, and our core belief that everybody's a superhero and you can really kind of acquire the superpowers by going onto these challenges. So here we go. We're still the same people doing the same things, just simply a new brand called 21 Day Hero. Anyway, so my today's guest is Melanie Avalon, who's an actress, best-selling author, podcast host, and a big intermittent fasting advocate. She's also a very big expert in wine, where she's going to share us a couple of tips and tricks about that. And her obsession to the science-based fat burning started after many failed attempts on finding the diet that could really stick to her lifestyle. And as soon as she stumbled upon the health benefits of combining the low-carb kind of / paleo diet with intermittent fasting, it really sparked a fire in her to build a perfect dietary lifestyle for herself and also help others to do it as well. And in this episode, we chat about things like how did she manage to keep her weight under control needed for her acting career, what is her fasting approach, we talk about paleo versus ketogenic diets, and what are the benefits of the moderate alcohol consumption. So a lot of good practical advice as always. I hope you enjoy this episode, and let's say hi to Melanie. Hi, Melanie, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Taurus. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
I always say that I'm more excited, because I'm the one who invited you, and I'm really, really excited about this chat we're going to have, primarily because the things we're going to talk. And I think you're a great person to chat about the topic of intermittent fasting, mainly because you already have a podcast focused on that topic. So you already not only experience yourself, but you already talked to many experts, about the topic. But you also are obviously a practitioner of fasting and paleo diet. So we're gonna talk about all that from your perspective. So definitely excited about that. But the first question I'm super curious is, what is your biggest superpower, Melanie?
My biggest superpower. I'm actually a unicorn.
You are. I think you're hiding your horn pretty well.
Sometimes I switch back and forth, but not right now. I'm not a unicorn right now, but sometimes.
Okay, because what's funny is that in your video, for the people who watch this on YouTube, like your top of the head is kind of cut off, so maybe this is
I'll have to keep it that way.
Yeah, exactly. All right, awesome. That's a unique one for sure. I never heard of that.
Oh, perfect.
well, you live in LA, not that far from Silicon Valley. That's also a land of unicorns.
This is true. Very true.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. So, Melanie, let's, always start from the start. So who are you? And for people who don't know so much about you, I could already say that you're also an actress, not only a intermittent fasting advocate, but also have been in a couple of, movies and TV series. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you start acting, and how did the whole thing of intermittent fasting appeared into your life? Yeah, exactly.
Sure. So I've always been acting since I was little. That's like my dream thing. So community theater and student films and everything like that. And then actually went to film school and theater school at USC in Los Angeles. So I moved out there from the south of the US. And that was absolutely amazing. And I'm still working with all of that with the industry and everything. So it's absolutely amazing. But while I was in college, I was always trying to lose weight or maintain a certain weight for my acting career, because that's obviously a huge part of it. And it was always like really silly, like fad diets. I mean, I tried calorie counting. I tried crazy things like the cookie diet, where you eat like these
cookies.
Yeah, I would have these massive shipments of cookies sent to my dorm room. I did it for like 6 months, and my roommates were just like, "What is she doing?"
I'm sorry, I have to stop you right there. Let's dig deeper in a cookie diet, because I think I'm gonna try it. I love cookies.
Yeah, it's like you get you pay for these shipments of specially formulated cookies that are supposed to help you lose weight. And the ironic thing is, I recently looked back at the ingredients of these cookies, and I would not touch them right now. They're so bad. There's like so many things in there that I just would not eat now. But yeah, nothing really that I tried was sustainable. And I mean, nothing was fun. It was always like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight and trying to maintain weight. So it was all really, really, really silly and really ineffective. And that all changed when I actually first tried a low carb diet. People are probably familiar with that. I actually tried the Atkins diet. So I cut out the sugar, the flour, I cut out the carbs basically. And that was the first time that I started seeing change. Well, A, I lost weight, and B, I started to see other changes besides weight loss. Like my energy level improved, just becoming from more of like a fat burner rather than a sugar burner. I just felt better. My skin started getting better. And so that's when I became really obsessed with the science of dieting and the science of fat burning. And I was like, I just want to jump in. And granted, I was still eating all of the crazy, it wasn't a very like clean diet. I was still eating, processed foods, packaged foods. I was still eating throughout the day. But that was the first step. And then, like I said, I became a little bit obsessed. So the next thing that I discovered was in the internet sphere, I discovered something. I saw like a blog post, and it was about eating 1 meal per day. It was based on Ori Hofmeckler's The Warrior Diet. And side note, we're actually interviewing Ori on our podcast soon, and I'm so excited because he was like the person who started me on intermittent fasting. But so his approach was basically eating all of your main meal at night. And it seemed really crazy, but I'm a crazy person. And I was like, I'm going to try it for a week. So this was about 7 years ago, maybe. And said I would try it for a week, and I never stopped. So that became a thing. So we can talk all about that, because that's the intermittent fasting aspect. And then the last aspect of my dietary journey was after graduating, I discovered the whole concept of the paleo diet, and that is where you basically just consume whole foods. So meat, nuts, fruits, vegetables, oils. You're cutting out all of the processed foods. So you're cutting out the packages, the additives, the chemicals. And honestly, I didn't think it would make that much of a difference, because I was already doing intermittent fasting. I was already low carb. So I was like, what difference will it make to really cut out like a rotisserie chicken that has all these additives compared to, a chicken that I make myself. But that was really the final puzzle piece. And that's when I really, really realized the effects that food can have on your body. And it's just been amazing. And so that's my dietary history. And with all of those components, I was finally able to have energy to maintain a low weight for my acting career, because all of this, granted, was at the same time as my focus was acting, and still is. And but it worked. And I was like, this works. Like, how did I not know about this for so long? Like, how was I in calorie counting mode and dieting mode? And it was all really needless, like unnecessary and silly. And so in 2014, I decided to put it all together into a book. I self-published the first rendition of my book, which is the What When Wine Diet. And then in 2017, I actually, wine. Wine is the third part. I really love wine. I was seeing alcohol and wine as kind of a cheat in my dietary world, as like the one bad thing. But the research I did really showed the health benefits of moderate alcohol consumption, especially wine. Especially wines from like Europe, because in the US they tend to add a lot of crazy things to wine. So clean wines, organic wines, which you probably have more access to where you are. But yeah, so put it all together, self-published a book, and then got a literary agent and re-released that book in 2000, actually just in January. So now it's in bookstores. Now it's like a whole new version. It's my dream version of the book, so it's everywhere. Also started the podcast. So yeah, that's my history altogether. Yeah.
in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Melanie's life in 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So, but still, tell me, like, at what point did it turn from, something, your lifestyle change, your diet change, in pursuit of the, perfect health and fitness, in order to, stay fit for your acting career, and at what point it turned into sort of a thing you do, basically, or your hobby, or your,
right.
thing.
Yeah. Well, I never anticipated it becoming as big as it is. I honestly, I wrote the first book because I just wanted to have a resource to give people, because I would be on sets all the time for TV shows, and I oftentimes I'm saying lunch because they always call it lunch on TV sets, even if it's at like dinner time or breakfast. It just depends like on the timing of the film.
Yeah.
So I would always be at lunch, and usually I would not be eating because it would not be my fasting window. So I typically just eat at night. And so people would often it would come up, like people would ask, and
Of course,
I didn't get tired of explaining it because I love it, but people would have so many questions and they were so intrigued. And I was like, I need to get this, I need to like have a resource that I can give these people because they just had so many questions. And so that's honestly the reason that I first wrote the first book. And like I said, I didn't anticipate it going where it ended up because now it's such a part of my life that I never really saw coming. But I guess that's why I first did it kind of selfishly, just so I could be like, just read this rather than me tell you everything. So yeah, that was how things changed. But
that's I don't think that's selfish. That's actually the opposite of selfish. You are making the information more accessible. You're not keeping it just in your brain. You're putting it in a format where anybody could read it. So actually that's the opposite of selfish, the way I see it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So always a shift of perspective. So what kind of what type of intermittent fasting do you follow personally? So you mentioned that the first thing you read was OMAD, right? 1 meal a day. Is that the stuff you always did from the beginning, or have you tried different ones? Like Warrior Diet and or 16-8, the most common one?
Yeah, sure. So I will tell for listeners and viewers the different types, so they'll be familiar, because I know it's like a lot of words and a lot of numbers. So basically, the way I see it, there are a few main ways that people often do intermittent fasting. A lot of people do. Let me backtrack a little bit. So basically, when you go 12 hours without eating, that's when your body switches into, not completely switches into a fat burning mode, but starts making metabolic changes to generate fuel from within yourself. So basically, when you're eating constantly throughout the day, you condition your body to wait for food throughout the day, and typically that's a sugar-based or carbohydrate-based, but you condition your body to wait for that food, and that's why you get hungry between meals. That's why you need snacks. That's why it's very unpleasant to diet. But with fasting, if you can go, I say if, but you can, but if you can go about 12 hours, your body starts figuring things out, because your body is very smart, and it realizes, okay, food is not coming in. What are we going to do? Well, the typical average person has a lot of fat stores, even a lean person. So even a lean person has about enough stored fat to walk about 1,000 miles just from that stored fat. So you have a lot of energy available to you. It's just a matter of accessing it. 12 hours or so, your body starts making changes to access that fat. And then the farther that you go into your fast, the more your body actually upregulates that fat for fat burning. So then you're filled with fuel from within yourself and you're not hungry because you have ample energy coming in. It's just coming from yourself rather than your last meal. Well, it is coming from your last meal, but a while ago. And so basically, most people, a very popular approach is like the 16-8 approach that you mentioned. So that's where you go 16 hours of fasting. So that you go the 12 hours where you switch into the mode really, and then about 4 hours of really being in the fasted state. And then people eat for about 8 hours. So a lot of people will do that and they'll eat either, breakfast and lunch, or they'll eat lunch and dinner. But it really allows for a very like a flexible window that can really fit well into people's social schedules and everything like that. I personally do you call it the 1 meal a day, the OMAD. And so that's, like I said, that's where I do it all at night. And I used to do it by like counting down the hours and doing it at a specific time. And a lot of people who do 1 meal a day, they'll end at a specific time. But what I actually do now is I just eat dinner whenever it happens to be for that day, for my life. And I typically have like my big dinner. Well, I have my whole pattern, but basically I have my big dinner, and then I do like snack freely till bed. I don't actually put like a closing end on my window that night. I just let sleep take care of that. So I go to bed and then I'm done. That works really well for me. I actually, that's what I did consistently, never really stopped for years and years and years. I actually recently have been experimenting with going back to a longer window because I've lost so much weight from intermittent fasting that I think I should probably put on some weight. So I've been experimenting with extending my window, but for me, the 1 meal a day just works so well. So I think I just need to eat more, which works for me. I love eating, but yeah. So those are the two. Those are like the main approaches. So you can do it more by like looking at the actual meals that you consume, or you can do it based like strictly on the clock. But I talk about all of this in my book. So
amazing. The book, What When Wine, and we're gonna talk about wine now.
Okay.
Let's talk about wine. So yeah. So
this is not wine, but
how. It might as well be. It's not a see-through cup.
I know.
How can I believe you, Melanie?
I know. No, people ask me that because I'm always drinking water during the day, and people are always like, "Oh, there it is," but no.
Yeah. So I read somewhere that you drink up to 2 glasses of wine per day, which I think, like, I used to work in a rehab. And we had this test of like, are you an alcoholic and stuff like that? And one of the questions were like, are you drinking every day?
Oh gosh.
So, so what's happening here? Are you recommending people to drink wine every day?
Well, okay. Caveat: I do drink wine every day. Now I actually drink a little bit less wine than I used to. But for a while, I was drinking about 2 glasses of wine per day. Yeah, from like I said, so I originally saw my wine intake as the one cheat in my dietary approach. But I started doing the research and I realized that honestly, if you look at the epidemiological studies, if you look at the studies that look at populations all over the world, most of the longest lived populations do have some sort of moderate alcohol intake. It's often wine. It is, sometimes it's other things, but it's usually wine. And even in the studies, they find that just alcohol alone seems to correlate to increased lifespan. It has cardiovascular benefits. There's definitely a lot of benefits to alcohol intake. It's very fascinating. They actually have found, and this is like correlational, not causational. Causation. It's correlation, not causation, which means it's looking at, lots of people and seeing how they live and seeing the common factors rather than cause and effect. But basically, even I'm not saying to drink a lot. I'm not saying to be a heavy drinker, but even heavy drinkers seem to live longer than complete abstainers. But I think the happy medium is definitely moderate drinking. And when it comes to wine, there's so many health benefits to wine besides the actual alcohol itself, which does have, like I said, some benefits. But wine is really, really rich in polyphenols. So those are plant compounds found in the grape naturally. They actually are increased when you make grapes into wine. The reason that happens, one of the reasons that it happens actually is, so polyphenols they're compounds found in plants, and they often are actually protective mechanisms that the plants generate to protect themselves from invaders. So that lends them like antimicrobial effects, but then also just beneficial effects when we consume them in small amounts. And when you're making wine, so you're crushing the grapes, so you're injuring the grapes, and so they actually release more and more of these polyphenols, which is pretty interesting. So when it comes to wine, people are probably familiar with like resveratrol. That's the most famous polyphenol found in grapes, correlated to heart health, longevity, brain health, so many things. But there's so many other things in wine, not just resveratrol. There's tannins, there's lots of other polyphenols. There's one of my favorites is called PC-ethanol. It's found in wine. It's actually an exercise mimetic, which means that it creates a similar metabolic state to exercise in your body. And they actually found that it, in rats, this is rats, but they found that it completely stopped muscle wasting. So researchers were trying to find, for example, some way to mitigate the negative effects. Seems like a tangent, but the negative effects of a zero gravity lifestyle for astronauts, because when you're in space, there's no gravity. So your muscle the muscle will waste away basically because there's nothing keeping it stimulated. But they found in rat studies that PC-ethanol actually would protect the muscles. So if you're a fan of muscle maintenance, you might want to keep some wine in your life.
Gotcha. and basically once we are going to space, let's just bring a lot of wine, because this will keep
bring it on
the muscle. Yeah, bring it on. All right, space and wine. Who could have known?
So
amazing. A lot of those words you mentioned didn't say anything to me, but that will just encourage me to actually read your book, which I'm pretty sure you are explaining a little bit more about those chemical compounds found in wine. But also for other listeners, this is just my Eastern European sense of humor. I'm sure you're not promoting, a heavy drinking and stuff like that. And about moderate drinking, I've read so much myself as well, and especially I think red wine is considered to be, the one that can really bring the benefits. And I think the people from the Mediterranean countries are usually kind of shown as an example of living healthy and longer lives just because they have a glass of wine at the dinner every day.
Yeah. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because the red wine, a lot of those chemicals and benefits come from the skin of the grape, which is why red wine is red. Because white wine actually comes from red grapes as well, or it can. So it is, red wine is the creme de la creme for sure.
For sure. Awesome. So next time I'm in LA, I'll definitely bring you a fine European wine. You choose Spanish, French, or Swiss. Even, Swiss are not that famous for their wines, but there's a wine region.
I would love to try some Swiss wine. I don't think I've ever had a Swiss wine. Like you said, they're not so famous for it, but I'm sure there is some good ones.
Exactly. No, they are for sure. Awesome. So diet. So like you said, you are following paleo diet, and I was listening with curiosity to what you said, because I'm like you, but before paleo. So I'm not eating a lot of carbs. I'm cooking a lot at home. As when I can, I eat unprocessed food, but I'm not saying no to processed food. And I'm not saying no to sugars. I'm kind of trying to keep it moderate, but it's still in my diet. I still probably have part of it almost every day. So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about paleo and why not keto, for example. So what made you choose, paleo only?
Sure. So to recap, so paleo is basically, it's the whole foods. It's cutting out the processed foods, the additives and everything like that. And the main reason I think it's so amazing is basically our bodies have evolved to process and utilize whole foods. And when we take in processed foods, when we take in these chemical additives, even in really small amounts, they have the tendency to create, our body doesn't see them as food. And so when we're putting them into our body, it can create immune responses because our body sees these things as foreign invaders. And the problem with constantly activating your immune response with what you're eating is that it can lead to a lot of like the autoimmune conditions that we have today. It can lead to just inflammation on just even a really small level, but really everything from like almost everything. So much of what we suffer with today is based in inflammation rather than getting sick from, on the one hand, you can get sick from like a cold or a virus. That's different. But everything else, like allergies, skin problems, and then like arthritis, aches and pains, degenerative diseases, even like diabetes, metabolic syndrome, all of these things, they are coming from our own body just messing up. I don't like saying messing up because I don't like to put blame on ourselves or blame on our bodies, but they're from things going wrong with the actual system rather than, like I said, catching a cold or catching a virus. And honestly, a lot of these degenerative diseases popped up fairly recently when you look at the timeline of humans. And so why is that? And like I said, I think it comes down to the food. And I think a huge part of it is those processed foods, those additives. Another huge part of it for a lot of people is, I think, grains, which is a huge part of the paleo diet, is cutting out grains. And that's because when we became a agricultural-based society, a Neolithic society, and we started eating grains as a food source, grains are super, super high in indigestible proteins, which actually create that same inflammation in the body and that same autoimmune response. The one people are most familiar with is probably gluten. And that's actually a plant protein found in grains that grains generate to protect themselves, kind of like the wine. But the problem with gluten is that it doesn't create benefits in our body. It's very destructive to our body. It can tear apart our digestive tract. So in addition to creating inflammation because the body kind of freaks out just seeing it, it actually creates holes in our digestive tract. It can allow things to leak into our system, can create those autoimmune problems. So like I said, I think that a lot of the maladies and the aches and pains that we have today do all relate to what we're eating. And like I said, I was low carb fasting, but not paleo. And when I cut out those processed foods and those additives, that's when I really saw little things go away that I didn't even realize were a thing. Like I stopped getting headaches. Now I like never get headaches. And I used to get them growing up. I got them all the time. I thought that was just normal. When I went low carb and I went with fasting, I got them occasionally. Now I rarely get them. Like aches and pains started going away. Like I have I did have pretty bad TMJ, like in my jaw, so jaw pain. So that went away, lower back pain. So just little things. And now I find it's really interesting. So now I find that if I, for some reason, have some sort of processed food, or, if something sneaks in, that I really feel the difference, which, somehow it might pop up as little brain fog or some aches and pains, but I really get a reaction to it. And people might say, oh, that's a negative. Like, I don't want to, react to all these different foods. But the way I see it is, before I cleaned up my diet, I was just kind of had a constant, like, low state of inflammation that I didn't realize. And now I just notice, my body lets me know that it's a problem. And I think that's a good thing. It's kind of like the difference between having a really dirty car and you never, not that people are dirty cars, but it's like the difference between having a dirty car.
Well, a lot of them do.
This is true. So like a dirty car, you don't really notice if you add another dirty smudge to it. But if you have a really clean car, you notice when you add like just one little smudge, it really stands out. So I think it's telling. As far as your question about keto, I'm gonna take some water.
Of course. Let me do that as well.
So, you know what? I almost had, I'm drinking water here. I almost had my water with my unicorn on it, my mug with my unicorn, but not this one. So as far as keto, so for people who aren't familiar, the keto diet is where you severely restrict carbs to instigate a state of ketosis. And that is basically a metabolic state where your body is running primarily on fatty acids and ketones. Ketones are an alternative fuel substrate for the body, an alternative to glucose. Glucose is sugar, basically, because your brain does need some amount of sugar, or glucose, but it actually functions way better on ketones, interestingly. They're a very clean burning source of energy. So that's what ketosis is. It's interesting. With intermittent fasting, you can actually, a lot of people still have substantial carbs in their eating window, especially if you're doing one meal a day, but they still find that they generate ketones during the fast. So you can definitely enter a ketogenic state temporarily. And I think from an evolutionary perspective, there aren't really populations that I think were like full-blown ketogenic all the time. People will make, this is more tangents, people will make arguments that the Inuits were, they are basically just eating meat and fat. But I read a study recently where they actually aren't necessarily ketogenic. Sorry, now I'm on a tangent. Back to the keto diet. So I did go through a period in college where I was eating basically just meat and coconut oil because they would you would fry it in coconut oil. Yeah. Well, they would mark down the rotisserie chickens every night at college to about $3 if I waited till 11 p.m. So I would wait till after my classes, and then I would go get a massive rotisserie chicken with coconut oil. And I did that for like 6 months, and it was great. So I definitely have been, I think, in a pretty ketogenic state. But now I find that I do, like I said, I was pretty severely low carb for quite a while. And people can totally do keto if that's what they do well on. Like I said, I've done well on it in the past, and it sounds like you're doing it now. You do keto?
No, I don't do keto. No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just I'm doing nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing fasting. I mean, I do intermittent fasting, 16/8, and then during the eating window, I practically eat everything. I try to eat low carb.
Oh, low carb. That's what you said.
It's not keto. So a keto, I think, is up to 10 grams of carbs, and I'm definitely not that low. I'm maybe 60, 70 grams. Something like that.
Yeah, keto, it varies per person. The typical cap, and like I said, I discussed this all in my book, is around up to about 25 grams or so, but a lot of people do more like 10, really negligible. But I just find now personally, I think hormonally and just sleep-wise, I sleep better with carbs, and I've just found that if I can function and feel just as good on keto as I can with carbs in my life, that I think I'm a happier person with carbs in my life. I tend to go like the fruit route, so I have a lot of fruit and stuff like that. But I've been recently thinking about trying to jump back in maybe to keto, because keto is becoming like, it's like the thing now. It's like everywhere. Like everybody's trying it.
It's the thing.
Like
It's the thing. I'm thinking even like, I think people even tattooing it on their bodies. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of keto, I'm keto.
I know, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
So it's funny. Like, I'll look on iTunes because our podcast, it's one of the top podcasts for nutrition and fitness. And so sometimes I'll look at like our rankings, and because we'll be like top 20, but it'll be like us. And then like all of the surrounding podcasts are like keto, keto, keto. It's like all these keto things. I'm like, yeah, keto.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to try. Paleo can be keto, but it doesn't have to be. So
Yeah. Now, one thing I think was different, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, is that at keto, like the proteins are, like eat proteins and fat, and dairy is kind of allowed, whereas in paleo, I think I heard that the dairy is not allowed. Is that correct?
yeah, so keto, that's one thing about keto, is it's often very, very high dairy. When I first went low carb, probably keto, I was doing lots of dairy. Dairy it's a maybe in the paleo world. So more often it's a no, but I put it as a maybe. In my book, I have like the no, the yes, the maybe lists. So basically the problems with dairy, it is a Neolithic food. So we started having it when we became a more like a grain-based society, and around that time, and we weren't consuming it historically quite as much. But I think the problems with dairy today, and this is more of a problem in the US as well, but so much dairy now comes from cows fed, cows fed hormones, cows fed antibiotics. So there's lots of stuff in the dairy, hormones, antibiotics, inflammatory things. Dairy is often pasteurized, so we lose a lot of the beneficial bacteria and the beneficial components to it that were originally in the milk. And so I think the modern version of dairy, and like I said, I go into this in great detail in the book, but it typically has an inflammatory effect rather than a beneficial effect. That said, if you can find some raw cheeses or there's also been genetic adaptations in milk that have made it more inflammatory. So, but if you can find the original type of milk, the way we used to, there's a difference between A1 and A2 milk. Kind of complicated. Again, just get the book. I talk about all of it there. But if you can get the right type of dairy, it can work for some people. But it is a maybe thing. So when people are trying a paleo diet, I encourage them to cut it out initially, and then it can be something that you can experiment with later. So
Yeah, exactly. So I think anything that relates to diet and the stuff you eat is obviously there are some things are like clearly in a no list, like processed food and artificial sweeteners, and sugars and stuff like that. So that's kind
artificial
of like,
sweeteners. Don't get me started. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, I pray every day they all are gone.
Oh yes.
By the time my children are born, that's still my only thing, because once those little ones are there, I'm okay with like eliminating those bad stuff from my house. But once they enter,
I know.
they go outside, everybody's eating like candies and stuff like that. That's my biggest nightmare. But maybe we still have a chance. But anyway, so all these things are, clearly in the no list, and all the other things, I kind of feel that it's super, super individual, not only on how your body reacts, because, for example, my body reacts to dairy, nothing happens, nothing bad happens. Whereas my wife, she gets her skin gets worse and stuff like that, right? So that's one thing. But another stuff, and I forgot what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, sorry. I want to say about the goals, right? So it's also very important. Like if your goal is to lose weight, so it's really low carb is something that's and keto is probably something that is really maybe something that you should really focus on, right? Whereas like if you want to maintain weight or maybe even, gain weight, then going super low carb is something maybe not as advised.
Well, I'm really, really glad you brought that up. You hit on two things. First of all, the individuality aspect of food. It's so true that it's so individual. Drives me crazy when people are like, this is the diet you should eat. Like, these really specific foods, when we are so different and there are so many factors that affect how we react to food. Genetics, gut microbiome is huge. I could talk about that for hours. There are just so many factors. Like, so for me, I personally, I actually have a lot of digestion issues that started about like 4 years ago after I got food poisoning. And so I'm really, really sensitive to foods. And so I personally follow, like, I have to be really careful in the types of foods that I eat. Even like with vegetables, I love vegetables, but a lot of them create like problems for me personally. But it's really just a matter of finding what works for you. And so while some people might do great on like tons of fiber and tons of vegetables and like lower protein, something like that, other people might do better with, less fiber, or they might do better with more starchy carbs. Some people might do better with fruit. Some people might do better with low carb, high carb. Even when it comes to weight loss, weight maintenance, in general, people tend to lose weight on keto. Some people don't, though. Some people find that they actually lose weight more on a higher carb, lower fat approach. So, I want to be able to be like, this is the one answer, do this, but that's not the way. It's not the way it is. So that's why I really encourage people to just get all the information and know what's going on with what they're eating and know the potential effects of things, and then just really experiment and, commit to different things, see how they work, and just know that different things can work for you. Different things can work for you at different times, and just not being scared to really experiment and finding what you work best with, because I really think people can find it.
Exactly.
So,
and I'm really happy that you mentioned experimentation, because that's kind of one of our also goals, is to not push, because push is very, like kind of a strong word, but encourage people to experiment, try different things, and don't commit, don't feel like they have to commit to something for, half a year, 3 months, 1 year, make these big commitments. No, try stuff for 21 days, try stuff for 3 weeks, it will give you so much feedback, so much information about how your body reacts, how your body changes, and then you are free to decide, what do you want to keep it 100%, maybe you want to tweak it, and that's that kind of stuff, So don't feel scared to experiment. Go check out our different challenges, So we have one for intermittent fasting, we will have one for nothing but water. So that doesn't mean that you only not gonna like eat anything, just drink water. That means that all the fluids will be just water, basically. So the food stays whatever you eat, but then, basically no alcohol, no, sodas and anything, just water. Just see how your body reacts. Maybe it will do you wonders. Maybe not, but in 3 weeks you can find out.
Yeah, no,
awesome.
I love that.
Thanks, Mel.
Mindset is so important. For sure. So.
It's all about mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about mindset. It took me a while to figure that out. So before we go to the rapid fire question, I want to get something like pretty practical from you. One recipe maybe that you can share, from your huge arsenal of things. You fast for 20 hours, and then that time comes that you're gonna eat something really nice.
Sure. So actually in my book, talk about that again, I actually have 50 recipes developed by a celebrity chef named Ariane Resnick, and they're all paleo friendly. They're all gluten-free. And they also indicate, there's like a little guide, and they indicate if they are low carb, because some of them are higher carb. They indicate if they're low carb. They say if they're paleo. They say if they're keto. They say if they're low FODMAP, which is basically has to do with people who have digestion problems. They say if they're vegan. So there's basically something for everybody. And I think there's so many, and it even has desserts. Even though I told myself back like a few years ago, I was like, oh, I'm never gonna have paleo desserts because that's but it does because whatever. But
well,
I
some might
think-
say a steak is a dessert. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's honestly when I was like super low carb, that was what I do. And even when I go to restaurants with my family, everybody gets dessert, and I basically will just like eat people's leftover meat as my dessert. Works for me.
Yeah.
Recipe wise though, I really encourage people to check out bone broth, which is becoming increasingly more popular. And there is a recipe for that in the book as well. But basically, you use bones, and I make mine in an Instant Pot, which is a pressure cooker, but you can do it over a slow cooker as well. And that's where you simmer the bones in water. You can add some apple cider vinegar. You can add some vegetables if you like, but it really leaches out, takes out all the minerals and all the benefits from bone, and it's from bones, and it's really, really nourishing for the body. It's really great. So actually, for listeners, if they go to melanieavalon.com/hustle in honor of this podcast, I will have the bone broth recipe from my book there, and you can get that there as well. And also,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also at my website, I also have like a fast guide to intermittent fasting, a lot of other free things. So go to melanieavalon.com/hustle, get your bone broth recipe, then look around my site. There's a thing for free guides, and you can get lots of other information as well. So lots of resources.
That's amazing.
there.
Thank you so much, Melanie.
Of course.
Thank you so much. So for everybody who's maybe didn't catch the name correctly, I'm gonna put it in the show notes and also in the description of the video if you're watching this on YouTube. Awesome. So thanks a lot for the giveaway. I'm gonna check out myself. We do also this Superpower Tuesday kind of a newsletter where we share free hacks for the body and mind. And actually, in the last edition, we also included a small part about the bone broths. So that's a nice coincidence.
It's a great way to break
exactly.
your fast, I think. So it's a very nourishing food. Don't have it during the fast, because people will think that's different. That will actually break your fast. But if you have it as the first thing that you consume when you start your eating window, super nourishing for the body, super healthy. So hopefully that'll help people in their intermittent fasting experiment.
For sure. Amazing. That's actually also reminds me of the fact that when my mom or my grandma used to make soups, they would always use, they would kind of make the bone broth first and then add the veggies and whatever. So, back in the day, everything was paleo, and only now we have to fight off.
Everything
the
was
stuff
organic too.
Exactly.
And now we pay an arm and a leg. I know.
That's the thing. Oh my goodness, it's like the how do you say, the blessing and the curse, this choice we have now.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much, Melanie. So before we go, I want to grill you. And once again, it's not a grill. Actually, there are just some few really nice questions for you, not related to intermittent fasting anymore.
Okay.
In a rapid fire round. So are you ready?
Oh gosh, I'm scared. Yes.
You better be scary. It will be very, very scary. Yeah.
I'm ready.
I'm joking. All right. So the first question is, what's the personal habit that made you a better person? And obviously, let's try to go outside the fasting and the paleo.
Personal habit that made me a better person. I really like experimenting all the little moments and the little things in life, and like colors and just the little things, that like they say that life is in the little things. So I think just really focusing on the good things like that, and just like the little things, has really made a difference in my brain and how I see the world, and in generating more positive things, because the brain is very malleable and it's very wireable. And so if you focus on the positive, it can really keep you headed towards the positive, because we tend to have a negative tendency. Our brains actually want to have a negative tendency. It's an evolutionary thing. So I think, focusing on the positive and the little things and colors. I like colors.
Amazing.
I'm looking at I have like pretty colors around my desk. So
Amazing. Positivity trumps negativity all the way. And the habit you want to develop next, you know, what's the area that you want to kind of work on next?
I want to be a morning person so bad. So bad. I've wanted to be a morning person since I was born, and I'm not. And every time I try, it's such an epic fail. And sometimes I get into the habit for like 2 days, but it just doesn't work. Even if I get up at like 5 a.m., I'm like, okay, I'm going to be tired. I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to be a morning person, but I'm not. So that's a habit I would like to try.
Exactly. No, I concur. I mean, I'm same here. I'm like such an evening person. I hear about all these benefits of, 5 a.m. Join the 5 a.m. club. So it's either we are not meant to be, or we are really, I should follow my own advice and like do it for 3 weeks,
True.
Like really push it. And then after 3 weeks, it should either stay or really you decide it's not to you. But
do you
I
have
always
a
find it
podcast
actually,
on that?
sorry.
Do you have a podcast on changing your circadian rhythm?
No.
Oh.
No.
If you do, send it my way, and then we should do it. And we'll try.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. That's actually a good idea. That's one of the things that I want to try myself. Yeah, that's amazing. But I always find it's just so I could, add a little bit more, kind of conflicting in my head that it's not like, the main argument is that, you wake up earlier, like, you can do more before 12 and stuff like that. But then you go to sleep much earlier.
Right, we do it at
it's
night.
Like you go to sleep.
So.
Yeah, then we do it at night. Exactly. So what's the difference? Which 8 hours, you're going to sleep? Is it going to be later?
No, I think about that all the time. I think it's just because it's in conflict with like how society is set up, which makes me, if there was like no society, I wouldn't care. I would just, it's just because it's a social thing. But
it's also true. So anybody who could share their experience, maybe they are in the morning person, turned from the evening person, if they could share their tips in the comments of this video, that would be really appreciated.
Oh, can I say one?
Awesome.
Can I say one thing that's fascinating?
Of course.
So I actually read that a main reason people are morning or night people is because it has to do with your natural circadian rhythm. I mean, obviously, but morning people often have shorter circadian rhythms than 24 hours, just by like a little bit. But that's why they get tired earlier. They go to bed. They get up earlier. Whereas a lot of night people have longer circadian rhythms than 24 hours. So the problem is, come like nighttime, it's not time for our internal clock to go to bed. And then it just perpetuates itself because it's like a longer rhythm. So we go to bed later, we sleep in later, then we go to bed later. Also, a lot of creative people have longer, are night owls. So
I heard that too.
Yeah.
I heard that too. So I'm okay with being called a creative person.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Great. So what helps you to reduce stress?
Oh my goodness. So many things. I focus on stress way too much. Like I'm always like, I don't want to be stressed. So I have all of these crazy different things. So I think one important thing is, speaking of sleep, is maintaining natural rhythms that promote stress relief. So like at night, I will wear red light blocking goggles, or blue light blocking goggles. To like,
yeah, I was like, I never heard about red light blocking.
Blue light. Okay. To just really create, cutting off the technology and just creating a natural. It really helps with stress actually at night. I really like tapping. If people are familiar with tapping, it's where you like activate different points in your body to switch into the non-stress state. And then there's so many things like massage and acupuncture and all the things. But I think my main stress thing is researching how to not be stressed, which probably just makes me more stressed. But I'm always researching like hacks and little things. So yeah, there's lots. Gratitude is huge as well.
Gratitude is huge. Exactly. I think that's very much related to the first thing you mentioned about the habit, the positivity, little things. It's all freaking related.
Mm-hmm.
Being positive, being grateful for little things, even for the colors in front of you.
Yeah.
That's that's just kind of builds this, big shield all around you, and you're you have that power, and you obviously you are a unicorn, so it's so much easier for you anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last question almost, it is a newsletter you don't delete.
Is what?
It's a newsletter you don't actually delete, because we get so many newsletters, and a lot of them is like automatically delete. Which one you read?
Oh, that's such a good question. Wait, I have so many. Okay. Actually, it's a lot of podcast related ones. So the updates, the ones that say that certain podcasts are up. So Rob Wolf's podcast, he's the person who really inspired me to try paleo in the first place. He wrote the Paleo Solution. And we actually have the same literary agent now, which is like so surreal. I can't even believe it. But his newsletter, Dr. Ruth's Show, he has a podcast. So I really recommend that for people who suffer with like gut health problems. Really great. So those two newsletters, I definitely really read. Probably those.
All the rest straight to the bin.
Yep. I am trying to like unsubscribe a lot of things. Yeah. It feels so good.
It does. It's like a lot of people speak about minimalism and actual word decluttering, taking the stuff you don't need. So the digital decluttering is as important. So
yeah, no, I actually. So I don't know if people can see. There's like stuff. I actually just moved to this apartment, and so I'm still in the moving process. But I'm listening to the book, like The Art of Tidying Up, and I'm just trying to throw away everything because I'm like, no more. Like just throw it all away. So
no, that's I've listened to the Tim Ferriss. I think
I love Tim Ferriss.
He interviewed
did he interview the author of that?
Exactly, he interviewed. It was with the mediator, with the translator. So it was very fun. But like she explains the approach of saying thank you to the things and then just throwing them out.
Yeah, you hold it up and you say, "Does this bring me joy?" And if it doesn't, it's out. So
exactly, yeah. So
it works well,
fun.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly. I'm planning. It's also one of those plans.
Yeah.
I need to do. Life is too short. All right, and the last question, and you mentioned already a couple of books, but still a book that changed your life.
Oh my goodness, there's so many.
I know.
So the Paleo Solution, like I mentioned that one by Rob Wolf. That was originally about Rob Wolf. The Upside of Stress. So that is actually about stress and mindset, and how if you see stress as a positive, it can become a positive in your body. But if you see it as a negative, it can become negative, and a lot of it is just about how we see it. So definitely The Upside of Stress. I literally read like a book a day, not even kidding. I will say the book I'm reading right now, or I actually just finished because now I'm reading one of his other books. But so Ori Hofmeckler, who wrote The Warrior Diet, I'm reading all of his stuff right now in preparation for having him on the podcast. He wrote one recently called The 7 Principles of Stress, and that's absolutely amazing if you are interested in intermittent fasting, in how stress is a very positive thing, how we can use it to our advantage, and just how we can function best with diet, with fasting, with health, society, all the things. So I just finished that, and I really liked it. So there's so many. I love books so much.
Amazing. I need to get advice from you. How can you manage to read so many
audiobooks too? Well, I do a lot of audiobooks.
Audiobooks.
Yeah.
So you use Audible?
I use Audible, and then I also do if for some reason it's just on Kindle, then I use like my phone to read it to me. But there's so much to know. I just want to know everything. So I'm like constantly listening to podcasts, audiobooks. It's bad. I need to like just,
Oh,
I
that's
need to just
definitely
like
not bad.
chill for a second. But it's fascinating. There's just so much.
No.
So
If it's there are really, things that are considered to be good, but they are bad. This is definitely not a bad thing.
well,
to read.
the more I
Yeah.
research, the more I realize I know nothing. So yeah,
that's
like
that's the bad part of curiosity, because it just gets you into the whole cycle of wanting to know more and never being happy with the amount.
I know so much to know.
So many things.
So much to know.
So much to know, exactly. So, but actually, this is perfect way to end this, because I can thank you for sharing your knowledge. Really from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sharing your story and your tips and your insights. That was really, really valuable for me, and I hope for the listeners as well. So before we say goodbye, what could be the best way to contact you?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing. So there are a few different ways people can follow me. Well, first of all, they can get the book. So that's called What When Wine, Lose Weight and Feel Great with Paleo Style Meals, Intermittent Fasting and Wine. It's on Amazon. It's also in bookstores, Barnes & Noble, things like that. You can go to melanieavalon.com. So that's my personal blog. That's where I blog. So that's where I have all my musings, my writings, lots of free guides, lots of free stuff there. So I encourage people to go there. You can also follow me on Twitter at Melanie Avalon, Instagram, Melanie Avalon, and then you can tune in to, in addition to this podcast, the Intermittent Fasting podcast. So we release that on Mondays on iTunes. So you can get that directly on iTunes, or you can go to ifpodcast.com, and that's where we have like links to all the show notes and ways to access it. So yeah, I think that's all the things.
Amazing. I can highly recommend the book and the podcast itself. Also, people wanted to go deeper into the lifestyle. What is it actually like to, what is it to live the lifestyle of intermittent fasting and paleo diet and sort of like that. Amazing resources straight from Melanie. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Taurus. This has been amazing.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Melanie. You can find the show notes of this episode with all the links and resources that she mentioned by going to 21dayhero.com/Melanie. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And if you have any sort of feedback or questions, please leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on the audio. You can do that by leaving us a review. Even if it's not a 5-star, we live, we learn from it. We really appreciate any sort of feedback we get. So I thank you guys. I appreciate you, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful day.